Patch 13 has arrived. The jury's out and the verdict is in. Dark Tide's class overhaul is a resounding success and has brought players back to the game in their thousands. With the update comes a vast array of wonderful new toys to tinker with in the form of talent trees. Now, as someone that was privileged enough to playtest this feature set for a fairly considerable amount of time, it's safe to say I've got a pretty good idea at this point of what's hot and what's not when it comes to these trees. Veteran is under the spotlight today, and in this video we'll be looking at what I feel are the 3 strongest ranged weapons you can run on Veteran right now, and 3 builds of my own devising that complement them perfectly. The guns in question are the Lucius hellbore 3, the Vrax Mark III Headhunter autogun, and the Zerona stub revolver. First up, we have the Lucius hellbore Mark III, which has skyrocketed in power thanks to changes to its blessing set and the generous las weapon support found in the veteran tree itself. So going over to the tree now, this is going to be a sharpshooter build, and I actually have 3 iterations of this build, depending on how safe or how dangerously you like to live. All 3 of them start off the same way, which is pathing through Longshot, Volley Adept, and the Shredder frag grenades. These are really strong and the bleed stack damage is significant, especially in multiples. Following that, we'll be pathing through the range damage node, Catch a Breath, Survivalist, Reload Speed, and then we'll be branching off right to take the toughness damage reduction, the infinite value demolition stockpile, and this critical hit chance node here. Then we'll be pathing to opening salvo, kill zone, and executioner stance, taking both relentless and counterfire. Now after that, it really comes down to you and whether you like to play it a little more safe or a little more dangerously. If you like to play it safe, you'll be taking both of these range damage nodes here. Then you'll be pathing down through exhilarating takedown for more toughness replenishment and toughness damage reduction. Then over through shock trooper for the infinite ammo, toughness, and determined. And then we'll move over to the middle tree for tactical awareness, superiority complex, bring it down, the health boost, and pathing all the way down to confirmed kill for even more toughness replenishment. The next way is the midway point between safety and greed, and with this one we'll be going through both range damage nodes. We'll be taking Deadshot instead of exhilarating takedown, and then pathing the same way as before, but going 1 node further into stamina regeneration boost, just to help us get some more stamina back more quickly when we're using Deadshot. After that, we'll be doing exactly the same as before, pathing down to confirm kill for the toughness regen. The final version of this build, and the greediest version, looks a little different from the other 2 in that we'll be going all the way to the bottom of this marksman tree to pick up an ability aptly named Marksman. More on that in just a second. And then for our last 4 points, we'll be taking this triangle of abilities here. Now this is the greediest because we've given up a lot of our toughness regen and we're taking Deadshot, so stamina management is crucial. But what we get instead is the ability to one-tap crushers, which you can only do out of volley fire with Marksman, and also with a hellbore running 25% versus Carapace. And this is what that looks like. The last part of the build is the weapon itself, and on this you absolutely want Surgical and Onslaught. Surgical sends your critical hit rate through the roof, and Onslaught makes your fairly slow weapon shoot much faster. Perks wise, I like to run Unyielding and Carapace. This is because pretty much every non-Ogren enemy will die in 1 headshot outside of volley fire, except the Maniac Rager, which needs critical headshot, and the Mutie, who requires 2 to 4 shots depending on critical hits and headshots. Versus Unyielding nets you a 1-shot breakpoint with a full charge critical headshot versus the Reaper, and versus Carapace gives you a consistent 2-shot full charge headshot breakpoint versus the Mauler and the Crusher, assuming that one of those shots is a critical hit. So looping back to the 3 iterations of this build, I'll quickly touch on the numbers. Iteration A nets you roughly 50% crit chance with a freshly loaded magazine and 1 second of aiming down sights, 3 sources of toughness regeneration, and a good level of survivability all rolled in. The trade-off here is its one-shot breakpoint reliability, especially at ranges within 15 meters, will be the lowest of the 3 iterations. Iteration B gives you roughly 75% critical hit chance with a freshly loaded magazine and 1 second of aiming down sights, and 2 sources of toughness regeneration with slightly less survivability, and the added tax of good stamina management to make sure Deadshot doesn't get you killed. And finally, Iteration C gives roughly 75% critical hit chance with a freshly loaded magazine and 1 second of aiming down sights, and the one-shot crusher breakpoint in the first 10 seconds of volley fire, but the trade-off here is it only has 1 source of toughness regen and the least amount of survivability baked into the build. So those are your options, choose wisely. Personally, I favour Iteration B, which has a really good mix of killing power and survivability and just really kind of checks all the boxes for me. I personally don't think the Crusher one-shot breakpoint is that big of a deal. It's just something that people like to do to flex. 2 shots is perfectly fine to kill those enemies. But hey, you can choose whichever one is your favourite. Next up, we have the Vrax 3 Headhunter Autogun. The Headhunter family of autoguns received a considerable buff to their finesse modifier in the last patch, as well as also having access to multiple critical hit blessings and the now super buffed Deadly Accurate. These buffs, together with key nodes on the tree, make it a monster of a weapon that excels at close and mid-range engagements. Okay, to get the absolute most out of our Vrax 3 Headhunter build, we're going to want to grab all the rending we possibly can from this tree, starting with the critical hit node to the right here, going through Vanguard, and then we'll be pathing down through Close Order Drill and Charismatic, which synergize nicely with each other, and picking up the Crack Grenade for pathing efficiency reasons. From there, we'll be going Health Boost, Grenade Tinkerer, Fire Team, Toughness Damage Reduction, Demolition Stockpile, Voice of Command, and we'll be picking up Duty and Honor for the teammate refresh and the potential overshield. Very, very strong ability. Now, with this last part of the tree, you've got a couple of different options, but you'll always be taking Stamina, Tactical Awareness, Superiority Complex, 10% health, the Toughness. Here you have a choice depending on how confident you're feeling with your Toughness regeneration. If you're comfortable with just using Shout as your only Toughness regeneration, you can skip Confirmed, kill here, and take Iron Will. Both of these are really efficient talents. If you don't want to rely solely on your Shout for Toughness, then I do recommend pathing through Confirmed Kill. And then we'll go through Born Leader here down to the 15% rending on all weapons. This is just a super efficient node that ups our damage across pretty much 90% of the targets in the game. Of course, unarmored being unaffected because they have no armor to rend. After that, we'll be going into the right-hand tree. We'll be taking Duck and Dive, Reciprocity, the Stamina Regeneration Delay Reduction, and Onslaught for the last of the 3 rending talents in the tree. Now this is where you've got a little bit of a choice. You've got 4 points left to spend, and depending on whether you want to play a little bit more sort of safely or if you really want to lean into your range, you've got some options. So if you want a more well-rounded, slightly safer hybrid build, I recommend going Toughness, Melee Damage, Desperado for the crit and finesse bonus, and then Trench Fighter Drill for the 15% melee attack speed. Really sort of nice hybrid package here that's got good mid-range shooting and very strong melee for the veteran. If you'd rather lean into your ranged weapon, you can do this. You can take Iron Will. You can take these 2 ranged damage nodes here. You don't actually need to take 25% damage versus Ogrins and Monstrosities because the rending will destroy these enemies so quickly anyway. And I'll show you that footage in just a second in the Psycardium. But if you want to take it just for the boss damage, then, cool, go ahead. And then that leaves us 1 point, and popping that in Sniper up top can be great. But ultimately, you can spend those last 4 points however you like. I would advise you to either shore up your weaknesses with some melee strength, or, lean into your range killing power by taking the sort of more ranged orientated talents that you can access. So in terms of what you're looking for on your Vrax 3 Headhunter Autogun, talking blessings first, you will want some combination of a critical hit blessing, either Headhunter, surgical or cruising roulette, combined with deadly accurate for the massive boost to critical weak spot damage. The reason behind these choices has to do with a unique facet of how critical hits work with the Vrax 3. Crits are applied on a per burst basis, not a per shot one. So putting that simply, this means if you get a critical hit with the Vrax 3, it applies to all 3 shots in the burst. And remember that critical hits synergize with deadly accuracy and also apply stacks of rending per hit. Perks wise, I would recommend Maniac first and foremost, and then either Flak or Critical Hit Chance as the second perk. Versus Maniac is top priority as the most dangerous specials in the game are all Maniac type and they have to die fast. As for perk 2, each choice has its merits. Flak's the most common armor type in the game and gives you a nice damage boost across a range of dangerous targets, while Crit Chance just helps all of our powerful synergies trigger more frequently. Summarizing this build, there's a huge amount of value on offer here. You have tons of survivability and team support thanks to key nodes in the middle tree and voice of command, and an extremely efficient killing machine in the Vrax 3 that is lethal versus all enemy types at close to mid-range, sporting both excellent hipfire and ADS accuracy. If you're someone that enjoys powerful mid-range type builds and being the rock that binds a party together, you'll get a lot of joy out of this one. Finally, we have the Zerona stub revolver, and if you're a subscriber of this channel, you'll know that I've rated this weapon rather harshly in times past. Well, I'm happy to say that this thing is an absolute beast now, and like the hellbore, has benefited hugely from reworks to its core blessings and the increase in power that the new veteran tree brings. It's an absolute joy to use, and of the 3 builds, this one might very well be my favorite. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're dealing with here. We will be pathing through Longshot, Volley Adept, and Frags again. And then through the range damage, Catch a Breath, and the Survivalist Aura, which is super efficient with the revolver. And then after that, we'll be going all the way over to the other side of the tree, where we'll be taking Grenadier, and we'll also be taking Demolition Stockpile. Once again, you're probably noticing a pattern with my builds here. Then we'll be going Infiltrate, and we'll be taking Low Profile. So I'm going to pause very quickly here just to talk a little bit about stealth on the veteran. It kind of, if you just read the ability description, doesn't have a sort of obvious use case. And I've personally found through my many hours on the test server and messing around with these abilities that of all 4 ones you could go for, this is the one that allows you to sort of make the best out of stealth. And what I mean by that is, it's very handy having that minus 90% threat for 10 seconds to just quietly eliminate all the dangerous enemies that are immediately pressing your party at any given moment. So you can go into stealth, you can get your free kill out of stealth or reload your gun or whatever, and then you have another 10 whole seconds to just quietly sweep all of the flamers and trappers. And hopefully I've got some great footage of me doing that to show you right about now. Going stealth. Killed them all. Sick. I love that talent. Moving on from stealth to the last part of the tree, and this is where we'll be spending the majority of our points. We'll be going all the way back across, getting the 2 range damage nodes and Deadshot. We'll be getting Tactical Awareness, Bring It Down, and Superiority Complex, as well as the 10% health boost here. And then Duck and Dive, Agile Engagement, which is really good on Revolver because it's quick draw, Stamina Regeneration Delay Reduction to help with Deadshot, more bleed on our melee attacks, and then we'll be going all the way down through the melee improvement nodes. And these nodes are kind of insane. More melee damage, 10% melee critical hit and 25% finesse damage, and then 15% attack speed. So really efficient nodes here. And I guess out of the 3 builds, this is the one that is the most kind of hybrid gameplay style. You are a more than capable melee fighter, and then you've got an absolute bazooka in your pocket to deal with whatever threat should pop out that you need to get rid of at a moment's notice. Talking about the weapon itself quickly, with perks you'll once again be wanting Maniac to hit the one-shot breakpoints across critical hits, headshots, and critical headshots against Maniac specials. And for the second perk, I would advise either taking versus Flak to hit the one-shot critical headshot on Flak Ragers, versus Unyielding for the two-shot critical headshot breakpoint versus Reapers and extra damage to monstrosities, or finally versus Carapace to get the two-shot critical headshot versus Crushers, although you will also need hand cannon to hit that one. Blessing-wise, the undisputed king of blessings at the minute is Surgical. This blessing compounds perfectly of all the crit chance in the build we're running, meaning that we can get close to a whopping 100% crit rate after just 1 second of aiming down sights. Considering that insane crit chance, hand cannon is an attractive second pick, giving us 80% rending on critical hit and allowing us to easily remove crushers in 2 well-placed shots if you chose Carapace as your second perk, as well as doing extra damage to bosses. There's also an argument to be had for Glory Hunter as the second blessing on the revolver, if you're not too bothered about monster damage and crusher breakpoints. The niche this blessing covers in this exact build is toughness trading with gunner elites. The astute amongst you may have noticed that gunners are hugely prevalent in the current version of the game, and having a talent that restores 30% toughness on gunner kill can be a valuable asset when it comes to clearing a room full of them. In the introduction to this build, I mentioned that this one was my favourite of the 3, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number 1, it is highly rewarding of creative decision making, and number 2, the clutchy save potential of it's really high. Stealth allows for so many clutchy actions in the moment, ranging from the more obvious stuff like reviving teammates or completing puzzles, to the more subtle uses of it, like allowing for a crucial reload, a strategic reposition, giving you the 2 seconds of space you need to safely throw a grenade that will save your team, and manipulating aggro to influence the behavior of specialists. As for that last point, that's the subject of another video, but trust me, give it a try. You'll be surprised at some of the things you can pull off.